Hello and welcome to Crucible of Worlds for more dedicated legacy action. Today we've got a donation deck. We are revisiting the monobrown aggro deck that we played probably a couple of months ago now. That was really fun. We got the 4-1. We were pretty close to a trophy with it and it felt really sweet to me and I enjoyed a lot of the things about the deck, including your friend and mine, Crystalline Giant. So we got a donation to run it back again and I'm excited to see how it fares. So what is this deck trying to do? As you can see, we've got a whole bunch of colourless mana. The aim of the game is to ramp out some stuff early on and disrupt our opponent with it whilst beating them down. So we've got Sphere of Resistance, we've got Chalice of the Void. These are things we can cast on turn 1 off of our 8 soul lands that really jam our opponents up. And then we have Mycosynth Gardens to copy these, so we can end up with as many as 8 Sphere of Resistance in play if things go in a strange way. So that's pretty sweet. Then our beatdown options are the 4 Lodestone Golems, the 3 Crystalline Giants, and Karn can go and find us other bits and pieces, and Ugin can spam out a load of 2/2s when the time is right. Essentially, we're just trying to disrupt our opponent as much as possible. God-Pharaoh's statue is like another Sphere of Resistance effect that's only one-sided, and is technically a win condition. We've also got Wastelands in our deck that we can use with our Crucible of Worlds just to make sure our opponent never gets to cast a spell. Fun times. I'm looking forward to doing this again. The Tangle Wire is a really nice one. It can just, if we can play a threat and then have a Tangle Wire, we get a few hits in with it because you can stack Tangle Wire in a way that it's not exactly the fairest thing, because this taps itself and you remove the fading counter first, so you end up tapping less permanents. So you just leave your creature untapped and then bash for a few turns. And the Crystalline Giant can certainly get out of hand over the course of a few turns. Grim Monolith is just more mana. We do have a Karakas in here, Thespin stage in here. We do have a Karakas as well, actually, somewhere. There it is. But we have a Thespin stage here, which we can use to copy things like Cloudpost to give us more mana or whatever. But we can also use this to then copy the Mycosynth Gardens, to then become another Sphere of Resistance. So our opponent's not going to be able to cast spells, and we're going to beat them down. That is the game plan. Got a few utility lands snuck in there, like Blast Zone and Ghost Quarter as well. And we do have a Tabernacle, which can be a little bit awkward, but I think it's an effect that we're going to need sometimes. Sideboard-wise, we have a Karn package. We have 4 Welding Jars that we brought in. Quite often when the Chalice of the Void is bad, we're going to want the Welding Jars. And then the rest of it is just a Karn package. So we've got another God-Pharaoh statue, another Crucible of Worlds. A Winter Orb is an interesting one. We can use this to suppress our opponent's mana again. Ensnaring Bridge. We have a Cityscape Leveler, which is an interesting one. So if we have the mana for this, we can just really start messing with our opponent in quite a grim fashion for them. We've got Sorcerous Spyglass, Tormod's Crit, bit Graveyard Hay, Liquimetal Coating, so we can do the whole Karn strip mine thing. Obviously Mycosynth Lattice to win the game with, or to stop our opponent from ever doing anything. Stone Brain to exile some combo cards from our opponent, and a Torpor Orb. So the reason we've gone super heavy into Karn here is, simply put, our deck does a thing that is very good against a decent chunk of the meta. But against the things it's not good against, there's no way we can repair that from the sideboard, frankly. And I don't think it's worth trying. Just having some more tools with Karn. Like, we can have like 4 or so, maybe 5 cards in our sideboard instead that do something else. But what would they be? How are they going to really help us? The only thing that might be potentially useful is a Trinisphere, but the Sphere of Resistance is doing a similar job and hopefully a better version of that job. So that's the deck, really. I had an absolute blast when I played this last time. We just absolutely rattled through the games and did some good old-fashioned mono-brown aggro on people, and it was a really fun time. So we're hoping to run it back. Before we jump in though, remember I have a Patreon that you can check out and a Discord as well, so why not check out the links below and just like and subscribe. Quite a few people watch my channel but didn't subscribe. If you get my subscriber numbers up, it does help my channel, so I'd appreciate it. And if you would like a donation deck to see me play something like this or something completely different or whatever, by all means get in touch via the Discord or just leave me a comment and I'll sort that out for you. Alright, let's play some mono brown aggro. If you're looking to play Legacy on MTGO like me, why not try Card Hoarder? They're a rental service that I personally use and I found them better than other rental services that I've used in the past. So why not give them a try? Alright, we're into the first round. This is our opening hand. It doesn't play Magic the Gathering. Let's mulligan it. What are we doing here? City of Traitors into Crystalline Giant, or City of Traitors into Sphere Resistance. Like, we're definitely keeping this. We just need to work out what the plan is here. Are we just wastelanding our opponents so they don't get to play the game? Do we want to keep the How many Wastelands do we think we're going to need here is the question. And is a second Mycosynth Gardens better than the Sphere of Resistance? Wish this was a 7, to be honest. I think we do have to keep both soul lands. I'm probably getting rid of one of the lands. I guess it's probably a Wasteland. Alright, our hand has some flaws. But it's got the ability to shut down somebody's deck quite handedly. If our opponent leads out on a non-basic and doesn't really do anything to commit to the board, then I can obviously do things differently. But I think we're just going to Sphere of Resistance. Let's see what our opponent's on. Agadeem. Is our opponent on Oops All Spells? A Lion's Eye Diamond. Okay, so this is going to be a matchup where our Spheres of Resistance are going to be very good. That's what our opponent is telling us. The question is, do we try and play this Crystalline Giant now while we can, to at least have a threat in play? And then we can start making more spheres. I think I want to get the threat down. So play this pre-combat. It gets a fancy ability. Today it's going to get Trample. Probably not a relevant one here. Next turn we can make another Mycosynth Gardens, which can be another Sphere of Resistance here. And then we can just wasteland our opponent after that and just beat them down with our 3-3. And I don't think they're going to be able to win, looking at the sort of deck they appear to be playing. Let's see what we draw though. Might change how we want to play this game. Nope. Alright. Play this in Mycosynth Gardens. Alright, combo deck. Can you beat double Sphere of Resistance, especially when we're about to wasteland you? I like this deck. It's relatively simple, but brings me a decent amount of joy, I would say. Oh, another Wasteland. Don't mind if I do. Lifelink, okay, that might be relevant if our opponent's trying to storm off or whatever. The next land they play is getting snagged by a Wasteland. Our opponent could be a Belcher deck, to be fair. That would be something that would play Agadeems. Right, we'll play another Wasteland. We'll go to attacks. Can we get the +1/+1 counter? No, we got flying. If we can get a +1/+1 counter this turn, then we have a 2-turn clock. Alright, our opponent has scooped it up. So, do we want any of the things that we have here? No, we're just going to submit the same deck again because we basically just have a Karn package here. Let's spread this out a little bit to make it easier to see. So we've got a Karn package and the Welding Jars. Do we want any of these things at all? I don't think so. We also have Karn, which looks like it's going to be excellent in this matchup as well. So this should be something that we can relatively easily smash our way through. We certainly have the tools in our deck to beat some sort of artifacty combo deck. What does this hand do though? This hand produces a Chalice on 0, and then we make a Crystalline Giant on the second turn. I think that's okay, unless they just turn 1 us here. But there's nothing we can really do about that. If we could draw a Chalice, we could do a Chalice for 0 and a Chalice for 1. That would be quite nice. But if they are on the Belcher plan, we're not going to really have a lot of purchase with what we're doing at all, if they can just go on turn 1. Our deck doesn't really do interaction on turn 0 for us. Turn Timber Symbiosis. I am pretty sure our opponent is on some sort of Belcher style deck. Alright, there is a Lotus Petal. What next? A Dire Ritual? Or is this Oops with Lion's Eye Diamond in maybe? Spoils of the Vault. Alright, we could win here if our opponent gets unlucky. Oh, what have they got here? Turn Timber Symbiosis. So there is a Belcher there. What did they name? They did name Charbelcher. Okay, so now they have the mana to play Charbelcher and the Lion's Eye Diamond to crack it. We will let them go through the motions because I would like to see the rest of their deck just to get a bit more of an indication. With a Bloom Apprentice as well. All the combos, all the time. So this is their deck. So it is just Belcher. There's Belcher and with a Bloom Apprentice. Looks pretty sweet. Right, we're on the play. We don't do anything differently because that's not what we do. You could argue that Tangle Wire is not as useful. Do we think our opponent's going to have something like Force of Vigor? That might make us want some Welding Jars. If we go on the play and we have a sphere, that's going to be pretty solid. I do think we might want these Welding Jars, really. I think they might be better than the Tangle Wires in this matchup. Crucible of Worlds, not the most exciting. We could bring in... I think it's better to have... Well, I guess the Karn does the thing anyway. So we probably want to board out the Crucible in favour of the Sorcerous Spyglass. And we can just name Charbelcher with that. That seems like a plan. We have turn 1 Chalice, turn 2 Lodestone Golem, which is not amazing here. But the Chalice is pretty good. I think we can keep this. Actually, we can make turn 1 Lodestone Golem, right? 3, take 2. Yeah, we can make turn 1 Lodestone Golem as well. We do that before we play the Chalice, I think. Because if our opponent has Force of Vigor, the Lodestone Golem will stop them from casting that immediately. Because they could use it to blow up our Chalice. Whereas if we sequence the Lodestone Golem first, then they can't do that. City of Traitors. Tap this for a Grim Monolith. Cast this Grim Monolith. Cast this Lodestone Golem. Cast this for 0. You've got 4 turns to get out of this Chalice and Lodestone Golem. Plan. There's an Academe. It's going to be tapped. I suspect it is. If we draw a Wasteland, we're snapping it off. Goodbye, Academe. Alright, I'm skipping it up. Yeah, we just did the whole prison-y staxx thing and got there. Oh, this deck is a lot of fun. Let's go to round 2. Excellent. We're on the play for the second game. What are we doing here? So this is 2 mana. We can play a Monolith. Next turn, we have 2, 3, 4, 5 mana. So we can play a turn 2 Ugin if we think that's going to be good. Turn 2 Ugin does sound pretty good. I think we'll keep this. So we can do Ugin and Tangle Wire. That's probably going to be pretty good. Right, they're cracking. Okay, so they're going to have some counter magic for us to deal with, potentially. Which makes me a little bit sad. So we probably cast the Grim Monolith. We can play around a daze in multiple different ways here. So we could Wasteland their Volcanic Island and then play this Grim Monolith and daze that way. Or we could play a Grim Monolith and if they daze it, so we tap this, play this land, the Glimmerpost out, so we can pay for a daze that way. So that will use up both of our monoliths. Whichever way we're going is probably going to be both monoliths, I think. Step 1 is tap our City of Traitors. I think Wasteland and our opponent is more like what our game plan is supposed to be here. So we play out this Wasteland, and we get rid of this Volcanic Islands, they can't daze. Then we play this Grim Monolith, and we cast this. Alright, we're in. Let's start manifesting. So next turn, we can play a Glimmerpost and a Tangle Wire. So our opponent plays a permanent this turn, we get to shut it down. Is our opponent a combo deck, or are they a control deck? Alright, a Tundra. A Cloudpost. I think we manifest. And we will play this Glimmerpost out to gain life. Play this Tangle Wire for 1 mana. Force of Negation, pitching misstep, sure. Right, we're getting ploughed here, sure. So the way the manifest works is whenever one of these things dies, we get the card into our hand, which is some pretty good value here. We're going to find this turn a Crystalline Giant. Go deeper into the well here. City of Traitors, you say. Let's go to attacks. If they kill this spirit token, we get a Karn. And that's going to be pretty annoying for our opponent. An Orcish Bowmasters. Sure. Alright, so we get a Karn in our hand. So we can play out the Ghost Quarter. And then play a Karn, possibly into Daze. Do I think our opponent is a Daze deck? If we think they're a Daze deck, we're supposed to play the Giant. It's a bit annoying playing this post-combat, but I think it's the correct thing to do still. Do we want to get rid of our opponent's white source here? How many basics do we think our opponent's playing? They're definitely running some number of basics. I think we just want this Ghost Quarter for mana next turn, because if we find another land, we can deploy the Karn. A Plateau. Alright, so we are 4 colours over there. Teferi. So they can bounce our Ugin. They're bouncing the Giant. Another Crystalline Giant. Let us activate our Ugin. Let us play this Crystalline Giant pre-combat. Let us play this Crystalline Giant pre-combat. Let us go to attacks. What abilities are they going to get? Flying, and this is so much better to track in Magic Online than it is in paper, because you have to roll all these dice for these Crystalline Giants and deal with a lot of nonsense. Oh, we didn't play a Cloudpost there. That was a mistake. Whoops. Alright, our opponent's conceding. Turn 2, Ugin got there. Okay. Our opponent showed us some red mana. Do we want Welding Jars for Meltdown? Meltdown's not actually that good against us, because we have got a lot of high CMC stuff, including spheres, that make it very difficult to cast Meltdown. I think we're running it back. Let's go. We can make turn 2 sphere resistance with this hand into more spheres of resistance. I think that's okay. If we draw a soul land, of which we have 8, then we can change things up in a different way and just play out the turn 1 sphere. We did not draw that. Alright, so we just go Cloudpost tapped and pass. That's our opponent's turn. There is a Tundra. An Ancient Tomb. So we can play around a Daze if we think our opponent's got a Daze. Just go for Sphere of Resistance here. Next turn we play Spheres and Wasteland. And our opponent starts to have an increasingly bad time. A Brainstorm in response. They could melt down where X is 2 on their next turn, which still gives us another Sphere of Resistance into Wasteland. Alright, here comes a Force of Will, pitching a Ponder. Understood, opponent. We don't have a follow-up. If we draw a Soul Land, we can do Tangle Wire into Sphere of Resistance next turn. And that should really annoy our opponent. But we'll see what they deploy here, because it could change the texture of the game quite a bit. 4th Eorlingus. Alright, just a little guy. That's going to give them a lot of cards in this game. Ugin the Ineffable. Tangle Wire will tap down all of their permanents. I kind of want to get this Ugin into play though. I'm kind of a little bit bottlenecked by our own stuff here. I think we play a Wasteland. We could Tangle Wire and then Wasteland them. That doesn't really achieve anything. We could Sphere Resistance, then Tangle Wire next turn. Buying ourselves time with Tangle Wire is kind of an awkward way to play the game, because they're drawing 2 cards a turn. Yeah, I think our opponent's got us this one. We're kind of stumbling a little bit here. I think they'll counter this sphere. Let's pay for it with life. Alright. Now I think we Wasteland them off of red. Again, this play is kind of awkward. We do get a Tangle Wire next turn, and Tangle Wire can tap itself and the sphere. But we're going to need to find enough mana for an Ugin soon. Our opponent is definitely going to be getting some reasonable damage in against us here. We do get to tap down all their permanents on this next turn though. A Lodestone Golem. We can't actually cast that this turn. We can cast a Tangle Wire though. Good old fashioned Tangle Wire. Alright, we got another Force of Will incoming. What are they pitching to it? A Dress Down, sure. So they're expecting us to have as a Saga, I think, which is a pretty reasonable assumption. Alright, so next turn we can make a Lodestone Golem. Yeah, this little human knight token though is going to be doing the real business against us. 2 mana Brainstorm. We've got another 2 mana spell here. Mystic Sanctuary. What are they going to put back? A Force of Will. Understood. Another Wasteland. Alright, we can deploy that and do a big Wasteland turn after we've got our stuff in play. This resolves, we have the biggest creature on the board at least. They really have another Force of Will. Yikes. Oh no, of course they do. They drew it off the Monarch. Ignore me. Yeah, that was face up, wasn't it? Alright, so next turn we cast Ugin the Ineffable, going to 2 life. So we'll be dead to any removal spell. And it's a fairy. This shouldn't minus, I don't believe. I think this should plus. So that if we play... Yeah, so if we play anything, they can bounce it and swing for lethal. I think they're going to have us here. We'll just take one more draw. Maybe we can get a hexproof giant. Karn the Great Creator. So that puts us to 2 life. I don't think we can get anything here. If we manifest a card off the top of our library, they bounce it. No, we are dunzos here. We get to be on the play for the final round. For the final game of this round, which should be nice. Do you want Liquimetal Coating? Sorry, not Liquid. Sorcerous Spyglass, the one underneath that. I don't think so. I think we just want to throw it back and try and jam something really good on turn 1. Maybe Defense Grid is something we should have in our sideboard. This hand is very slow and bad. This hand is acceptable to me. We'll get rid of Tabernacle. So we go turn 2 Lodestone Golem, and then we can navigate the game as we see fit. Because the Lodestone Golem will tax our opponent's mana and really cause them issues. And it means our other stuff is more likely to resolve if that resolves. Alright, a second Lodestone Golem now. Can we just keep chaining golems? I imagine they're probably going to have an answer for this. A Brainstorm looking for a Force of Will. Force of Negation does not do it here. It has to be the Force of Will. They haven't shown us daisies, so I'm not expecting to see that. Are we in? Our opponent's taking a long time. I'm not happy about that. Yep, here comes a Force. Pitching another Force. Alright, so Lodestone Golem next turn might be quite good. Ugh. Really? You boarded in Surgical Extraction against the mono staxx deck? That's weird. I don't think that should be in our opponent's deck. Unfortunately, it's going to work quite well against us. But I don't think that's correct sideboarding, personally. There's a Flooded Strand. We're going to see anything off of it here. We have a choice what we play next turn, whether we play the Giant or the Karn. I don't think we're playing Wire just yet. I think we're probably on Giant in case they play 4th Earlingus next turn. At least we have something to block it with. Stop them getting the Monarch. Alright, so they're doing... So they didn't shuffle off of the first Ponder. Is that just because they found another Ponder, which is better than a random draw a lot of the time? A Sphere of Resistance. I would like to get a threat in play. What are we going to get? It was Trample. It wasn't Hexproof. That would have been nice. If you could choose which one of these you got each time, this card would be incredibly good. If we can find a mana source, we can Tangle Wire into Sphere. So they can't play 4th Earlingus for a guy and kill our guy. And I guess I could have Snuff Out. That would do it. But we'll see what materializes on our opponent's side of the board. No play, interesting. A Ghost Quarter. Right, we'll go attacks with our Crystalline Giant. Let's see what it gets this turn. Reach and Trample. Not the one I wanted. Let's go for a Tangle Wire here. And play this out. And cast a Sphere. This is a Snapcaster into Brainstorm, I think. Or they could surgically extract our City of Traitors, but I think that would be a bad play. Just trying to get a Brainstorm off here, see if they can answer this. Alternatively, try and develop a game plan. They'll be tapping down all of their permanents next turn. Could really do with some Hexproof on our Crystalline Giant in the near future. If you're unfamiliar with Crystalline Giant, we'll just read through all the abilities it can get. Flying, First Strike, Death Touch, Hexproof, Lifelink, Menace, Reach, Trample, Vigilance, and a +1/+1 counter. Alright. So our opponent's going to have all their permanents tapped down in their upkeep. The power of Tangle Wire compels you. What is this? A Bowmasters? I need another mana if it's Bowmasters. There's the Bowmasters. Don't really mind that. We have taken a bit of punishment from our own Ancient Tomb, but... So they still have to tap all their things down. Vigilance would also be useful on our Crystalline Giant this turn. Or Lifelink. This means that they can cast a Force of Will this turn, potentially. So we put the Fading on the top. So we want the tapping one on the bottom. So that the Fading resolves first, we remove a counter. And then we only have to tap 3 permanents. So Tangle Wire itself, Sphere of Resistance, and I think the Ghost Quarter here. A City of Traitors, you say? Let's go attacks. Let's see what ability we get. A +1/+1 counter. That makes it a 3-turn clock. Next turn, we just tap the Tangle Wire and the Sphere. Play a City of Traitors. We can't play our Karn because of our own Sphere. But our opponent has to tap 3 of their permanents. They're going to tap their lands or their creatures, or a combination. I think that largely depends on what's in their hand. They could have a land and then melt down us for 3 and blow up our entire board. That would be a shame. Alright, they're tapping their creatures down. Alright. Not a fan of where this is going. There's a land. 1. Okay, so tapping red mana. Are you just going to cast a 4th Earlingus? Or is it the Meltdown? It is the Meltdown. Alright, so we hit the worst case scenario there. Not the best of times. We have a Wasteland, so we have 6 mana available. What is in our sideboard for a situation like this? Come on, Karn, it's time to save the day. What can you find us? What can you find us? Winter Orb. That is a 2-mana play. Not sure that gets us there. So this is 2, 3, 4. Right, well, we're definitely casting the Karn here. If we get the God-Pharaoh statue, it's probably not going to be good enough. If we get the Cityscape Leveler, we might be able to cast this if we draw a thing. So we can plus this and it'll go to 1, and then what are we doing? Nothing really. So I think we have to minus this. We could get an Ensnaring Bridge. I don't think that's where we want to be either. So what is the option? Are we on Cityscape Leveler to at least have a threat if we draw a soul land? I think it is. We don't want to play this Wasteland out because it will destroy our City of Traitors. So we're kind of hoping to draw a soul land next turn. Our card should soak up 3 damage at least, so we're only taking 1 the next turn. So the Snapcaster Mage and one thing is going at the Karn, the other one is coming at me. Yeah, goodbye Karn. Not a soul land. Interesting. What does our opponent have for us here? A hard cast Force of Will by the looks of it. Sure. Alright. Bit unfortunate. Feel we were very close to getting this one. But didn't quite get over the hill there. Surgical Extraction on City of Traitors. So that's going to cut off a bunch of draws for our Cityscape Leveler. So we're going to take 4 this turn, so we won't be able to cast the Cityscape Leveler because we're going to take 2 from our Ancient Tomb and 2 from other Ancient Tombs. They've cut the Cityscape Leveler off. I can't believe these bad Surgical Extractions are actually helping our opponent. This is only going to tell them it's the right thing to do, whereas 99% of the time it's not a thing you want to board in this matchup. But sometimes that's the way it goes. A Grim Monolith. So this makes 3 mana. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So not enough mana to do it all. And then we die in the next turn. Yeah. We got very unfortunate there, and our opponent wasn't punished for their errors, I think. I really don't think Surgical Extraction is what you want. It's kind of one of those things where you go, oh, but you can take out the thing, but you have to have already dealt with one of the things. They were very lucky that they hit a card that was in our hand with the Surgical Extraction. But, yeah, sometimes that's the breaks. Let's go to round 3. On the play again. I do like being on the play. But what does our hand actually do here? It's quite slow. I think we can do better. We want to stop our opponent from playing the game. This does stop our opponent from playing the game. In some fashions. Our opponent's mulliganed to... no, our opponent hasn't mulliganed yet. I think we want... what lands do we want to play first? We'll keep this. One of these has got to go back. It's probably just going to be this Chalice. We say done. I think the smartest card to play here is Wasteland. Basic item from our opponent. Sure. An Ancient Tomb. So now we can play the Sphere around a Daze if we want to, or we could play a Chalice around a Daze. I like Chalice around a Daze. And next time we can drop the Lodestone Golem. Supreme Verdict. Okay, so on another one of these control-y style decks. Are they going to be Jeskai? How deep into Jeskai are they going to be? Are they going to have the Black Splash for Bowmasters? Who knows? I don't think our opponent is playing a Daze deck. We'll play out the Mycosynth Gardens and deploy a Lodestone Golem. If this resolves, next turn we can copy it with Mycosynth Gardens. Provided we don't get caught up by a removal spell. So if we try and copy it and they remove in response, we've wasted our turn. Wasteland's not really doing the work for us here. So I think we play out the Glimmerpost here. If they kill our Lodestone Golem, we can copy in response. Otherwise, we make Sphere and copy Sphere. Would you like a Sphere resistance, opponent? How much would you like all of your spells to cost? It's sad how bad our Wastelands look here, but they're going to have some targets in it. They're probably going to have, a couple of Tundras at least. Okay, so now do we just copy this Sphere resistance and try and jam our opponent up? This does take a land away from us. But we've got a Cloudpost, which can certainly recoup some mana in pretty sharp fashion. Alright, all your spells cost 3 more to cast, opponent. What would you like to do about that? They'd like to concede. Understood. Love this deck. Do we want to change anything here? We don't have defense grids. If we're worried about Meltdown, we can bring in Welding Jars. Our Wasteland Crucible of Worlds package looks pretty bad, so I at least get 1 Welding Jar in there. How good do I think Tangle Wire is going to be in this matchup? It's just going to tap all of their lands down, which is actually fine by me. We could get rid of a Wasteland, but it's still going to have some targets. I think we'll just have the 1 Welding Jar over the Crucible here and call it a day. That's a lot of City of Traitors. That is a lot of City of Traitors. Is this the sort of hand we want to keep? It's got a lot of high-end business in a control matchup. But we are a little bit vulnerable to some things. We can go turn 1 Wasteland, turn 2 City of Traitors, Crystalline Giant. That's probably okay. We got some payoffs. We just need to stick one of them, really. Lodestone Golem, that's another payoff I like. I would love to draw an Ancient Tomb this turn. That would do me nicely. That is not an Ancient Tomb, is it? Alright, let's play a card that our opponent's probably going to have to read. Here comes the Giant. How do you feel about Crystalline Giant? And do a little brainstorm with a fetch land. Looks like they're going to. Force of Will, pitching Spell Pierce. Sure. Another turn where I would like to draw a different land. We're going to see a Narset here, I believe. A Blood Moon. Okay, we are not too bad against Blood Moon. It slows down the amount of mana we have. We did draw an Ancient Tomb, but we don't need actual colourless stuff. So it's not going to stop us from casting our spells. It's going to delay us by 1 turn. Let's go for a Lodestone Golem. Probably going to get ploughed. Did not get ploughed. It's an expensive one to hit with a Meltdown. Go attacks. Here's a big crash in for 5. What have you got, opponent? We play another Lodestone Golem. I think we play a Karn out here. And are we on Liquimetal Coating or are we on God-Pharaoh's statue? I think we're on Liquimetal Coating, and then so we can cast that next turn if we need to. If something happens to our Karn or whatever, we can replace it next turn anyway. White and a blue. What are we looking at here? A Snapcaster Mage. This is just a 2-1. They can't cast this Brainstorm because of Lodestone Golem. Ambush Viper. Here we come. What is this? 4th Eolingus. Sure. So we're going to lose our Karn this turn. Or they can introduce the Monarch. I think they're going to kill our Karn though. Sure. So we can play this one out. We can go to attacks with our big boy. We don't have enough mana to Tangle Wire and Lodestone Golem, but we can drop another Lodestone Golem here. And we can drop a Liquimetal Coating. So if our opponent does cast some sort of Meltdown type thing, it's unlikely they're going to have the mana to cast a good sized Meltdown, but we can blow up one of their opponents at the same time. I think they're on chump block duty over there. Play this Mycosynth Gardens. Let's play this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, it's 6 now for the Karn, isn't it? Alright, the Karn got there. And we won the match. Yeah. I love this deck. It's really fun. Let's go to round 4. Turn to Sphere of Resistance. Oh, I don't like this one. Now this one I can get behind. We got the Sphere. Keep this. I think we'll throw back. Is it either Tabernacle or Karn? Tabernacle can kind of jam ourselves up a little bit. I think we'll put the Tabernacle back. Just curious whether or not we're supposed to have Tabernacle in our deck altogether. Alright, Ancient Tomb, Sphere of Resistance, boom. What are you playing, opponent? A Lotus Petal. So our opponent's probably some sort of... They could be a Storm deck. Or they could be like a Omniscience Show and Tell type jam. We don't get to play a spell this turn because of our own Tangle Wire. If our opponent plays an Ancient Tomb, they can then deploy... Alright, they're just playing out more of those. I would love to find a Soul Land and just play this Karn. It's an annoying one, isn't it? Right, shut off 1-drops. If we had a Soul Land there and deployed the Karn, I think it might have been game over. A Glimmerpost. This takes us up a little bit in mana-wise. 1, 2, 3, 4 mana. Can't quite cast the Lodestone Golem yet, but this will tap down all of our opponent's permanents. Whereas it won't tap down any of our opponents because it will hit the Tangle Wire, the Chalice, and the Sphere. Force of Will, pitching Brainstorm. Sure. Feels like they're just trying to get a land and cast Show and Tell. No? Okay. We drew a land. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can I has Karn? No Lotus Petal. Alright, our opponent did not like that, and they have scooped it up. Excellent. So, do I want Tangle Wires? Or do I want Welding Jars for Seeds of Innocence? That feels like one of the things we have to play around here. I think our Crucible is still going to be valid here. We haven't seen enough of our opponent's deck to be sure. They could just be a show and tell decks because they've started splashing green quite often just for Veil of Summer. They might have just had a weird draw. But then why did they fetch their Tropical Island in the first place? Tricky. I like Tangle Wire because their things they play are sorcery speed. So tapping all their stuff down just does stop them from comboing. Right, we have turn 1 Chalice into turn 2 Karn. Or turn 2 Golem. That's probably pretty reasonable. We're going to see a Brainstorm here. A Ponder. Sorry, I meant Ponder, not Brainstorm. They shouldn't be just firing out a Brainstorm like that on turn 1. They chose to not shuffle their library. That's sad. Alright. Ancient Tomb into Chalice of the Void. And that resolved. No 1-drops for our opponents. They're just going to show and tell us or something here. No. Okay. What have we drawn here? A Grim Monolith. Do we think our opponent plays Days? Yes. I think we play this Wasteland out so that we don't lose our City of Traitors. Right. Grim Monolith. If we play out Karn here, it's into a Daze. If we play the Grim Monolith first, we play around the Daze. We can Daze a Grim Monolith. Let's go for another Grim Monolith. Do you want a Karn or do we want a Lodestone Golem? Kind of interested in the Golem. I'm going to go for the Golem here. This gets around Force of Negation and we're playing it around Daze. So it has to be exactly Force of Will to stop this. And they didn't do anything on 2 mana. So if we basically send them back down to 2 mana, they're unlikely to do anything on their next turn as well. And next turn we have 5 mana. So we can play Karn and maybe do something with it. I don't know if our opponent's casting any spells here. No. Because their 1-drops would get hit by Chalice. And they couldn't cast a 2-drop. So no land. That's excellent news for us. A Wasteland. We can play a Karn into a Daze. We don't mind our opponent bouncing their land, to be honest. Oh wait, no, that costs extra mana, doesn't it? We've made a mistake there. We forgot about our own Lodestone Golem. We should have played the City of Traitors to get the Karn out. That was an error. We were supposed to untap this Grim Monolith as well, but I yielded through the turn. Yet another error. Okay, let's go for Karn. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just get Coating for next turn. Let's go Tax and Bash. Love this deck so much. We're cruising now with 3-1 going into the 4-1 for the final round. We did make 2 errors in there. We could have played the Karn a turn earlier, or we could have untapped the Grim Monolith. We didn't do that. We didn't get punished for it. It doesn't really... The untapping the Grim Monolith doesn't really change what we're casting that turn necessarily. But not playing the Karn out also meant that we could play an additional land, so it would be a lot easier to cast the Mycosynth Lattice. So it wasn't necessarily what we wanted to do, but it might have been the right play regardless. So take of that what you will. All right, let's go to the final round and let's see if we can finish with a 4-1. Chalice into Crystalline Giant. What a curve. Are they playing a Chalice? All right, we're not going to do Chalice. Do we want to just wasteland our opponent and maybe hope they don't have anything? I like that. Let's start the game again. Our opponent's 2 cards down. With Chalice, it does nothing. A basic mountain, sure. A Sphere of Resistance. My lock pieces, are they better than yours? If we can draw a soul land, we can deploy the Crystalline Giant next turn. No Crystalline Giant. Have another Sphere, opponent. I'm the Wasteland deck. Alright, Ancient Tomb is awkward. 3 mana Fable, sure. We may have caused ourselves a little bit of trouble on this one. A City of Traitors. So we can cast a 2-drop if we play it. That's not really where we want to be, is it? I don't think we're supposed to play out that to make that second Sphere, if I'm being honest with you. We do have Karn, which is going to be good in this matchup. Alright, so they're getting Treasure, which is going to work wonders against our Sphere Resistance plan. So it's going to be a Caves of Chaos Adventurer. Yeah, that's probably going to kill us in quite quick fashion. We're going to take 7, 8, 9 next turn. And they're just pulling ahead in a big way. What is our plan to get out of this game? 1, 2. So we basically, if we play this, we have 3 mana. So we can play a Crystalline Giant this turn. Is that going to be good enough? I don't think so. I think we're just going to concede this one and go to next game. We should have made the second Sphere. If they didn't have the Ancient Tomb, then it would have been fine. Alright, so we want Welding Jars in and Chalices out. So any other changes we want to make here? No, these are all fine. We're going to submit like this. Right, we're on the play. What does our hand do? It plays a turn 2 Karn. Is that good enough? I don't know if it is. What about this hand? What does this hand do? It plays a turn 2 something. No, I don't like this either. No, I think we're going to lose this one now. What is our strategy? Alright, let's go to 4 and see if we can find something. Alright. We ended up with a hand that looks a lot like the one that we threw back ages ago, but kind of worse. So this and this is 3 mana. Alright, Karn, you've got to be good here. We can certainly turtle behind a Karn for a little bit. Maybe that plays out okay. Alright, a tapped Shadow Skull smashing. We will have a Glimmerpost and pass a turn. Okay, a Blood Moon. That slows us down a little bit. Do we want to play a Sphere of Resistance and slow ourselves down by 2 turns? I don't think we do. We just want to play a Karn next turn and hope that's good enough. Maybe we should have just kept the turn 2 Karn hand to begin with. A Tangle Wire. It's not really what I'm in for right now. Just get this. Let's plus no targets just to make it a bit tankier for next turn. Fiery Confluence going. Interesting. Rabble Master. Pretty good. 3 damage in our Karn. So we might be getting Ensnaring Bridge. But how do we need to draw a land. Otherwise this isn't going to work. Oh, they have a Fury as well. Sure. Yeah. Our opponent is taking us to task here. This is definitely one of the weaker matchups for the deck because a lot of the prison stuff we're doing doesn't impact our opponent that much because they're doing similar things. Alright. City of Traitors. If we play a Tangle Wire, our opponent's just going to tap down their lands and then kill us with everything else. So it's not going to help. This is what I mean. Our opponents are just very bad in this matchup. Alright, so we're going to be dead next turn, I believe. I haven't done the maths, but it feels like we die next turn when they copy their Rabble Master and get 2 big Rabble Masters bashing us. Because how much is this? 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah, so we are dead next turn. We don't have anything that we can draw here to stop us dying. I think we are just donezoed. That's the end of that chapter, really. Yeah, we were sailing quite nicely. I think we were pretty unfortunate to lose against that the earlier deck that we lost against with the surgicals and stuff. It felt like they didn't really know how to approach the matchup and boarded in some questionable things that still got them there. But I do think that's a bit of an awkward one. So I think we would happily play that matchup again. Their deck seemed very vulnerable to Wastelands as well. And you saw how we smashed the other control deck. So I think we were unlucky in that matchup. The last matchup, though, absolutely destroyed. No questions asked. That's our worst matchup with this deck, I think, because our prison stuff doesn't do anything. And their aggro plan is way stronger than ours with the goblins, the fable, and the initiative creatures. So we kind of just got a bit pummeled by them at the end. But we knew that was going to happen. Like I said, one of the only things we do sideboarding-wise is boarding out our chalices for welding jars. So not great there. But let's talk about the deck. So 3-2 is pretty acceptable. With this exact same deck list now, we have gone 7-3. So that's a 70% win rate. Obviously, small sample of games of only 10. But, you know, I think this deck is pretty good and viable. I know Phil played it on his channel and didn't have a very good time over there with it. But I really like the way this deck plays. I think you have to be quite aggressive with it. And so there was a game where we prioritized playing a threat over a lock piece. Because if you play a Tangle Wire, it's not doing anything. You need to advance your game and then play a Tangle Wire. So it's kind of like playing a tempo deck where you play out your creature and then you Tangle Wire them and they can't really deal with your creature coming in at them, that sort of thing. So I think that's probably the way to play this deck. I will say this Tabernacle, I'm not convinced by this. So that's probably one that we could think about changing for something else. Yeah, but otherwise I think the deck's fine. I don't know if we want to be changing sideboard because there's a lot of tools in our sideboard, right? But we're not getting a lot of them. So maybe we could have a few defense grids or something in there. So for matchups where we want to board in defense grid, we could do that. But what are we boarding out? I guess Crucible of Worlds can come out for a defense grid in controlling matchups if they are basic heavy list. So that's maybe something. I guess the Tabernacle isn't a land really, is it? So that could... Maybe we could trim down on that and have another spell and have a defense grid, perhaps. The God-Pharaoh statue maybe is a bit too expensive for what we're trying to do here. And maybe we need some more early pressure. But quite what that'll be, I don't know. Maybe we want Palantir in here, the new card from Lord of the Rings. That looks very good for what we're doing. Gives us card selection and a win condition that's going to sort of jam our opponent up and put them in a horrible spot. So I think Palantir over the statue and maybe the Tabernacle. Maybe try and put 2 Palantir in here. Something like that. Or maybe the Tabernacle should be another land, an actual land. But again, we're not really counting in our mana base because it doesn't ever tap for land. Because the only way we can ever tap it is if our opponent helps us out with an Urborg or Yavimaya. So I don't think counting this as a land makes sense. So we'll put it like over here in the sort of semi-questionable slots. However, I will say that the Ugin was excellent. It really made everything come together for us. So I don't have a problem with the Ugin being in there. But I think the God-Pharaoh statue and the Tabernacle are things we could maybe look at. And then when we're talking about the sideboard, we probably want to change. I don't mind having the God-Pharaoh statue in the sideboard purely because if you've Mycosynth Lattice locked your opponent, you need a way of winning the game. And if they have creatures so that you've got this Ensnaring Bridge keeping you alive, then God-Pharaoh statue you can just sit behind and eventually win the game. So I don't hate that here. Cityscape Leveler, if this was Wormcoil Engine, we probably would have won... well, we would at least would have had a chance of beating that Jeskai deck. When they drew pretty well. Like, they might have been able to stop this anyway, but a 6-drop might have been a bit easier. Now, I do understand why this is in here because it blows up permanents, but maybe there's a cheaper way we can go about doing that. Any other changes here that I could think of? Torpor Orb as a one-of in the sideboard is interesting because it's going to take us a lot of mana to get this Torpor Orb into play. And the question is, then what happens, right? Like, if we've got enough mana to play Karn and play the Torpor Orb to stop something like a Doomsday deck, I guess the Torpor Orb is good for beating Death and Taxes a little bit. I don't know, maybe Thorn of Amethyst is something we want in here as well. I don't think Winter Orb is necessarily where I want to be. Again, this could be something in the main deck that's more useful. It's just, I think if we played more creatures, then Winter Orb would be good if we had some other disruptive creatures. But we don't really. We need like a 2-mana Lodestone Golem. Like, maybe like a 2-mana 3/2 Lodestone Golem. That would be good. I think it'd be fair-ish. Because Thalia exists and has first strike. So we'd lose first strike, so it'd be worse in combat most of the time unless they have nothing. And it would just feel like a mini Lodestone Golem. Maybe, but obviously that card doesn't exist and I'm just spitballing here. But maybe we need some other creatures in here just so we can apply a little bit of pressure. Maybe that's what we're missing here. But I think the Palantir is the pressure that we're looking for. So we could try that one. Yeah, I'm very happy with this deck. I really enjoy it. It was a really fun donation deck to play, and I really hope that I get to play it again at some point. It is an absolute blast to play. And I think we can definitely improve it with a couple of little tweaks here and there. Now I've had a full 10 reps with this deck in terms of rounds. I've got a better handle on what works and what doesn't in it, so I think we could probably change that. I'm not sure if we need to mess with any of our other lands here. Have a think to see if there's better utility lands that we could run, but we are just trimming with the margins. I think the actual plan of this deck is very good. There is a lands deck that is, well, the best lands deck in my opinion in the format right now, plays 4 Sphere Resistance main deck, and it just wins games off the back of Sphere Resistance. And we're doing the same thing, but we also have these Lodestone Golems that can just come and mash people up too. Alright, I think we're done with this one today. If you would like a donation deck on the channel, please reach out to me via either the Discord or commenting on a video, and we can sort it out from there. And remember to like and subscribe and leave me some comments too if you can think of ways of improving this deck. I'd like to know, because hopefully I'll get to run this again at some point. Alright, thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.